is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Dorm Debate podcast. 4 brackets up, 3 brackets down, 1 remains. Caleb. Caleb, your bracket still remains perfect. Do you have anything to say?
I can't believe it either.
Dude, we all thought Johns was gonna be right as the time traveler that he is, but unfortunately he had a couple wrong. But the Bills are still in play to make it to the Super Bowl, so we'll see about that.
Yeah.
We're gonna leave off the Bills for just a quick second, and we're gonna go to the biggest upset of the weekend. The Cleveland Browns beat the Pittsburgh Steelers in the playoffs. Guys, it has been since 1994. 1994 since the Cleveland Browns have won a playoff game. We are witnessing history with the Browns, with the Bills. This is a historic playoff scenario. Now, the Browns beat the Steelers 48-37. That score is a little closer. It was an absolute domination from the first snap. So we're just going to go around and get our thoughts on the Browns' performance. And also, we want to look at the Steelers going into next season. We know that Ben Roethlisberger, he's not getting any younger. And we saw him on the sideline with Pouncey. He was very, very sad after the loss. And there's just a lot of things to think about with this Steelers offseason. But first, John, I want to go to the Browns. What were your first initial reactions when the Browns took a 28-0 lead and then end up winning the game?
It was, oh my gosh, insane. Anybody watching it was just like had their mouth open the whole first quarter, just like, what the heck is going on? And it was funny. I was watching it with my dad, and after, the first snap goes over Roethlisberger's head into the end zone, the Browns recover. Then I think the next series, Roethlisberger threw an interception or something. Browns go right down and get the touchdown. And at that moment, when they went up 14-0, I was telling my dad, I'm like, and I texted you guys, I'm like, this game's over. Like, yeah, they could come back from 14-0, but you could just feel the energy and the momentum. And there was just no way they were like, that was only Ben's first interception. Like, he only had 1 turnover at that point, but he ended up having 3 more. And it was just one of those games where you just feel it. You're just like, it's over. Like, the Browns just were ready to play with that, even without their head coach, which 3 of us thought that was a big deal, but Caleb, has the time traveling abilities for the playoffs. But we all thought that was a big deal. And like Caleb was saying that, how complicated is a run play? The Browns have a run first offense, and it's like, the offensive coordinator could step up as play caller and, call these plays. But it was, if I had to put one thing on it, it was just energy, and they were just more ready to come out. They wanted it more than the Steelers did. And that's the bottom line.
Yeah, I think you mentioned the kind of in the game you kind of felt like I'm never one to call a game, even though I do acknowledge in the moment it's like, this looks bad. The first play of the game looked like this is the work, because I wasn't watching the beginning of the game, but I started getting texts from you guys. I was like, what could have happened that was this bad? And I went to watch it. John, you filled me in. I was like, really? I looked on Twitter, and it was just, and that's the center just messed up, but to mess up that bad for the whole team. There's a picture, I think, of Roethlisberger and Connor just like both around the ball, and the caption was like, how a Steelers player did not get this, I don't understand. Because they were both there by themselves, they just didn't fall on it.
I know.
From that get-go, it's like it just felt like they didn't have it to beat the Browns. I think going into this, the Browns had more momentum. It's weird because the Steelers, we talked about it, had started off really strong and then started to kind of lose games, or there was the play with the Juju getting hit in the logo. It's like this is such a weird season for the Steelers because they played great, they had great numbers, but it's like one of the most disappointing because you lose in the first round. And I also mentioned this last week that a lot of their success had to do with Roethlisberger's ability, and he threw 4 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. That's like Jameis Winston numbers, like.
Yeah.
I think there was a statistic where it was like, there's only been like 2 players to lose a postseason game with more than 500 yards passing, and that was Tom Brady against the Eagles and then Roethlisberger against the Browns. So, it's I don't know if Roethlisberger is going to play or be the starter next year. Maybe he'll be the substitute going forward. But I mean, like you said, John, it was like the commentators mentioned that offense is still Stefanski's, and he was able to drop what they wanted from the home, and thankfully, I think he's getting better, and he's going to coach next game. But that's still his offense, and as like you said, it's not to say the run plays are simple, but when you're a run first offense, it just lets you transition easier to someone else taking the helm from building on what Stefanski built and could carry for the weeks. I mean, they were underdogs. You got to give it. You love an underdog win. Steelers were undefeated for the longest time. Like literally, they outpaced the Chiefs and other teams like the Bucs and things like that. And it's like it's impressive what the Browns are doing. I have them losing to Kansas City next week. We can talk more about that this week, but I think it's still. I know I had a perfect bracket for the first six. These next four games and going on, it's like I don't think it's gonna last. I'm very self confident, clearly, but it's like
Too humble, too humble.
all these teams are just again, I don't care who wins really. I just want to see good football, and all these teams have it in them to upset, play great games, and even with that, I mean, watching Kareem Hunt, watching Chubb tear it up against a great Steelers defense. Watton, I think that model of having a great defense has to be supported by a veteran quarterback who doesn't turn over the ball. You saw that with the Broncos and Peyton Manning, and even with Tom Brady and with the Patriots having that great of a defense when he was playing, I think, the Rams. That model only works if your starting quarterback is not turning it over. And frankly, I think Roethlisberger, had a bad day as well as a good one, but you need to have just a good day if you're the veteran quarterback to do that. And I think the Steelers end up paying for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just think the Browns were more of a unit. They just you could tell on social media from like the fourth string to the first string. I mean, these guys want it. They wanted to win. They worked together. They like it's hard to explain. They just worked in unison. And the Steelers, you could tell ever since they lost that first game and they started losing second, third, something was off. Like as soon as they lost that first game, it was like uh, I don't know what happened, but like Juju's thing happened, and then you heard the thing about Claypool saying in week 17, like, oh, the Browns won, but we let them in so we could beat them in the playoffs. We're gonna
Mhm.
spank them in the next round.
Browns will be the Browns, I think was what was said as well.
Yeah, the
Browns
Browns
will
will be the
always be the
Browns.
Browns.
Like the cockiness of the Steelers to do that after you've accomplished nothing except win a division. Like you went 11-0, and that went to their head. Like even after the losses, they're like, we went 11-0. Like we are light years better out of everybody. And I don't think they gave the respect that the Browns deserved, and it bit them at the worst moment in the playoffs, prime time. The Browns, that this is like, I hate to say it, but like this could propel them to a very close battle with the Chiefs. I don't think this Chiefs game against
Oh
the
yeah.
Browns will be a blowout. I really don't. Like it this will be very close. The momentum that the Browns have right now and the belief that they are good enough to win the playoffs, they're good enough to win the Super Bowl, like that's in their heads from the fourth string to the first string. They believe that they can win. And that's pretty strong. And you may see the Chiefs have a little Super Bowl hangover. We see with a lot of teams that have that. So they may not want it as much if they get down early. Can the Chiefs respond? That's the type of thing I'm looking for. Um, but as for the Steelers, John, where do they go with Roethlisberger? It's assumed that they're going to do a 1 year deal if they want him back. Um, but it doesn't look like Mason Rudolph's the guy. Do you trade and get someone this year? Do you get like Jameis Winston? Where do they go at the quarterback position going forward?
Well, I think the Steelers. So this is what they should do is keep Roethlisberger, and what I think they will do is keep Roethlisberger. I think sign him to a 1 year deal. If he wants to come back, they're going to let him come back. He's won 2 Super Bowls with them, and it's clear that he still has it in him. I mean, yeah, he blundered toward the end, but come on, to win 11 straight games to start the year, how much could you really, you can't be like, oh, well, he just had 4 interceptions, so his career's over. No, like he won a lot of games. They were the third seed in the AFC.
He was
Like that's
slinging it this year.
yeah, like he was good. And I think he's going to come back, but I think they're going to be probably the same next year. They're going to be good, but it's all about the maturity, and I think that was the difference between the Steelers and the Browns. I saw something that came out after the game was that Stefanski, although he was at home, he was doing his research, and he was telling the coaches, like in practice, he was like, we gotta work on our tipped balls, like getting our hands up and then catching the balls after they're tipped. And how many interceptions? At least 2 of the interceptions were off tips, and then it was like in the air, and a guy, like even a big guy, like dove and caught it, and it's like, they didn't miss any of them, they caught them. So it's like that shows you, like, Stefanski's working on that, and they're telling him, like, have these big guys, defensive linemen, like jump and try to get the ball. And then Juju and Claypool are on TikTok doing, Corvette, which is addicting. But like, come on, like Juju's the oldest receiver in that like receiving core, and he's only what, like 23, 24. It's like, come on, you have to set an example. Like, I don't care if you're dancing and stuff, but don't dance on logos. Don't like speak out and disrespect, because he spoke out and disrespected. And now what is Claypool doing? Claypool's like, oh, we could beat the Browns. Now he's starting to do it, and it's like, then it's like you're just putting a target on your back. Be humble, and then like prove yourself like through your actions. So I think that was a difference in like the just the maturity. And I think next year, I think that'll tone down a little bit. Hopefully it will. But as far as Roethlisberger goes, my feeling is that he will come back, and if he wants to come back, they'll let him come back.
And before you go, Caleb, Juju is a free agent this year, so who knows if they'll even bring him back. They got a lot of star talent at the wide receiver position. They don't necessarily need him. They could just let him walk and say, we don't want, the distraction of you doing TikToks and whatever. It's fine that you do TikToks, but you can't be disrespectful to do
Right.
it.
Exactly.
I don't know. It's part of the game. I talked about this trash talk, and there's a bit of that. My only caveat, I would never do it personally if I was a player. It's just, you got to win if you do it.
Right.
Yeah.
And, like when they lost, I mean, Jared, you kind of summed it up. It just comes down to underestimating your opponent. Art of war. You just can't ever underestimate the enemy. And for so many years, the Browns were bad, and the Steelers were riding on a wave of playing good, that it's like, oh, mathematically it should, be easy game. You underestimated the run game. And I was also saying how underdog, because they couldn't practice in their facility, the Cleveland Browns, and they didn't have their head coach, that it's easy to,
oh my God, I forgot about that.
Right? So you got to give the Browns a lot of credit here. Mayfield, there was a lot of articles. One of the strangest things this year, there's been one article one week where it's like, is Baker Mayfield going to be the quarterback, the franchise moving forward? Then the next week, it's like he's playing out of his mind. And towards the end of his, and it went back and forth for a little bit. And then at some point, it's just like he's playing really well this season, and he kept it up for the playoff. Like Baker Mayfield won a playoff game against the Steelers. And I think, like John, you said, I think Roethlisberger will stay with the Steelers if he wants to. I hope he doesn't go out and he goes in a more respectful way than I think Eli Manning went with how they treated, because it's like, this is a franchise history quarterback, and even if you sign him to a 1-year deal and let him be, like, even if he's humble enough to do it, to kind of welcome in the heir apparent, I don't think it's Rudolph either. But if they drafted a quarterback to either have Ben be there to start and then have the younger quarterback play, be second string, which isn't a bad thing. We have this idea of drafting a young quarterback and putting him in the NFL immediately. Look at Mahomes. Look at all these other, there's other quarterbacks. Brady didn't start. It's like so many of these quarterbacks can excel if they just have a year to learn under a good quarterback. And maybe that's kind of Big Ben's farewell tour, because he has it in him. But it's like, part of me is also like, well, what's the argument? Because he's won 2 Super Bowls. He's great. He's a legend. Don't get me wrong. But it's like the defense was playing with a great defense, and then amazing wide receiver talent. It's just the run game wasn't there. But it's like, if you're going to win with Big Ben, it should have been enough to maybe go past the Browns, in my opinion, because they still have Snell and Connor, who aren't bad. It's just like, I don't know. It was the turnovers. It was impressive coaching from the Browns. I mean, you got to give the Browns credit. Also, Jarvis Landry. We gotta talk about how well he played. I remember when he was on the Dolphins, he talked. People roasted him for saying that he was one of the best receivers in the league. I had him on fantasy, and I believe in him then. And I'm like seeing him flash now without Odell. It's like some of those plays became much bigger just because of Landry's effort on the field. So that's the kind of energy you want for a playoff run. And it's like Jared, like you're saying, the Chiefs face a very big challenge in repeating success. It's very hard to do that, not just because of the challenge, but just the mindset of like we already got one. Like why do we need to, just that voice is always there, and not to say they can't do it, but when you're going up against someone hungry like the Browns, I mean, I mentioned this that I was leaning towards Flores for being the head coach of the year. I'm leaning towards Stefanski now because it's like to have built a team that strong and to still coach it remotely, like give your coordinator enough material to be able to build and succeed himself. It's like you got to give him credit for that. So I like that about the Browns.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I totally forgot that Odell was even a part of this team.
Imagine if Odell gets a ring. If like the Browns make it to the Super Bowl and that's how he gets his ring.
Oh man, that would. I mean,
He gets
that'd
it,
be great and also like kind of sucky.
I mean, if I was getting a Super Bowl ring, dude, I don't, I don't care, because
Like,
he's part of the team. But it's interesting. It's not
yeah,
impossible.
eh, we'll have to look at Odell's contract later on in the year, but like, is he signed for a long time with the
I'm not
Browns?
sure. We can check on that. But it's like if they're winning without him, how much money
Yeah,
are you paying him with injury? I mean, like
trade value, man.
I think even
Yeah.
Stephen A was saying, like, had Odell not caught that amazing catch, like, and let's say he's a bad receiver, but like, what does he produce? Like, what is they went to the playoffs. Like, what you gotta win.
Yeah,
Mhm.
So I don't know. I think a team could use Odell. Maybe they keep him, but maybe you should invest more into that run game.
yeah, maybe. Well, we're gonna touch on the Chiefs versus Browns later on in the episode. Um, that's enough for the last weekend playoff games. We're gonna go into this weekend's the Saturday and Sunday games. We're gonna start with the Ravens versus Bills. Now the Bills just beat the Colts, and the Ravens beat the Titans, and it's Lamar Jackson versus Josh Allen. Two very different quarterbacks. One is a unanimous MVP. The other one could potentially be MVP this year. I think all eyes are going to be in Buffalo. There was a statement made by Lamar that he said he's never played in snow before, so he hopes there's not snow in the forecast. So, John, talk to me about the Ravens versus Bills. I know you have the Bills in your bracket, but were you surprised by the Ravens beating the Titans? Their performance, Lamar's performance, he did very well. That huge 40-yard run. Um, what do you see the Ravens doing versus the Bills?
Yeah, so the game last weekend against, the Ravens and Titans, I think all of us, yeah, we all had the Ravens and we all got
Yeah,
that right, even though they were the 5 seed. We all thought Lamar would get his first playoff win, and he did. But what was interesting is they were down 10-0. And I saw a stat, these football networks love to throw those stats up on there, and it says the Ravens are the only team that hasn't had a double-digit comeback in the last 2 seasons or whatever. So it's like, okay, trying to make everybody think the game's over, Ravens
Yeah.
can't come back. And sure enough, Lamar chips away at it, has that long run which ties the game, and then they come back and win. And I don't know, when you were watching the game, it's just like it's one of those things kind of like the Browns and the Steelers, like who wanted it more. And it seemed like the guys like trying to tackle Lamar, like there were a couple players where I'm like, they could have, like if that guy was just running towards Lamar, like he could have got him. Like there was one corner that like came from the short side that was just like jogging, and I'm like, you literally could have dove and got him. And so I don't know, it was weird, but I'm happy for Lamar. I love to see him get his first playoff win, but going into Buffalo is going to be tough. If it's snowing, I think it's going to be advantage Josh Allen. And most of the time you'd say if it's snowing, advantage run game. But Allen played at Wyoming. There was snow there. He plays in Buffalo. There's snow there. He's not as good as Aaron Rodgers in the snow because we haven't really seen him prove it. But you saw Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams against the Titans in snow. So it's not like passing games are like doomed. So like I still think Allen and the Bills have the upper hand. And it's going to be a great game to watch because the Bills, as we saw against Jonathan Taylor, he didn't break like any 60-yard run, but he was able to get his way. Like every run he got, it was like at least 3-4 yards. And imagine J.K. Dobbins and then with Lamar Jackson there. And if I'm not mistaken, they played like 2 years ago, not this season, but last season. And the Ravens won the game and Lamar ran for over 100 yards. So I don't know how much they're looking back on that game, but it's going to be tough for the Bills to stop him on the ground. It's going to be a very close game, but I still think the Bills are going to win. I think Josh Allen, his arm talent is amazing, and they don't really need to run the ball that much. And this Ravens secondary is good, but as we saw, Marlon Humphrey was beat by AJ Brown multiple times. So I still like the Bills in this game, but it's going to be so fun to watch.
Yeah, I totally agree with all that you said there because it's like, oh, the only part I might say is another player who's really good in the snow, if you remember, was LaShawn McCoy.
Yeah,
Anytime he's in the snow,
Mhm.
you got to put him up in your fantasy, back in the day.
yeah,
And I bring him up because it reminds me a little bit of Lamar Jackson's kind of agility, kind of run ability. I
hmm
still have the Bills winning this, as I said in last week. But like you said, it's going to be a fun game to watch because Allen has the experience in the snow. You're coming to the Bills' turf, and he's accustomed to it. The whole team is, and they still have players who can adjust to that. But if Lamar can run a lot this game, then it's gonna, I don't. It's gonna be close. I think it's gonna be a tight game. I think the Bills will win out because of their more diversity on both sides of the ball, as well as Allen has his own running ability, as well as just how well he's playing. I think pound for pound, he's a better passer. Lamar's a better runner, which might help him in the snow. But considering that they both have, you know, Allen has the already has proven experience in the snow, and it's kind of a bet on Lamar having LaShawn McCoy kind of esque game. It's possible because it's snow games sometimes do favor um, the run game, but then you like you brought up the Green Bay Packers proved it wrong. If you have good enough receiving threats, it's like the same advantages and disadvantages that a receiver has in terms of cutting in the snow and quickly adjusting to it applies to the corners covering them too. So if a quarterback can capitalize on those mistakes from the defensive secondary, I mean, I think Allen's better posed to do that with his weapons than Lamar Jackson. So I'm still giving this to the Bills, but like I said earlier, these games coming up, it's like I really don't care who wins. I just want to see good football. I think the Bills got it, but I mean, if Jonathan was here, he'd be cringing because he hates
yeah.
the Bills. And I wish you were here, Jonathan. We miss you. But I'm giving this one to the Bills for those reasons. I think it's going to be a shootout though, and I hope to see that. We might be surprised by both teams' run game taking over more than the quarterback play. So we'll see.
A recent sign for the Bills, they picked up Devonta Freeman. I think he was on the Giants recently.
hmm
Don't know how that's going to impact him, but I think the running back Moss got injured, so he won't be able to play.
hmm
Um, about the Ravens, if they lose this game, I think this was a successful season. I had talked about them like week 6 or 7 of the season, saying they're gonna lose in the first round and all this stuff. Like they didn't improve. Um, Luckily, they got a really good matchup. I think
Yeah.
if they played any other team, they would have lost, to be honest. But if they lose it to the Bills, I think this is a win because the hurdle and the weight off the shoulders of Lamar can't win a big game, Lamar can't win a playoff game. That's finally off their shoulders. It's I don't know how to
It's
explain
worth
it, but
mentioning because
yeah,
that
it's
was our
worth
whole
mentioning.
argument. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Like that, having that hurdle to jump over, finally getting over it, is gonna do wonders for Lamar next season,
hmm
and then they'll be able to play free and not have to worry about the media. Um, but to go on to the Bills, they played Kyler Murray. Obviously, we all know Hail Murray to DeAndre Hopkins. The game before, Kyler Murray rushed for 106 yards, 11 rushes, 106 yards. Then he plays the Bills. The Bills held him 11 rushes for 61 yards. So I don't think they will have a problem containing Lamar Jackson, and they would have won this game against Murray. And I feel like Murray and Lamar are kind of similar, but Murray can pass a lot better. Murray had to throw for 275 yards to get that win, including a Hail Mary.
Yeah, 50 of them were on the Hail Mary.
Yeah, so
True.
Lamar is gonna have to throw the ball. If they're gonna win this game, he will have to throw the ball. He's gonna get contained. It's only a matter of time before they stop the run, and he's gonna have to sit in the pocket and move the ball with his arm. So with that being said, I don't think he's there yet. I think he's proven that when he plays the Chiefs, when he plays the Steelers, when he plays these big name teams, he collapses. He doesn't perform passing wise to that MVP that he was before. I wanted to see consistency out of Lamar. If he could perform at that, similar MVP level this year, then I would be more impressed. But he's still relying on his feet. And I don't think that's good for a franchise quarterback. He's got to start. It's going to be year 4 almost. He's got to start developing an arm. Murray is in the second year. He can run the ball, and he's got an incredible arm. I just don't think Lamar is at that point yet in his career to beat a top 5 defense with his arm. So for that reason, I'm going to take the Bills on this one. I know I picked the Colts over the Bills, but you know what? Bills versus Ravens, I have to. Moving on to the NFC. We'll get to the Chiefs Browns in a second. We just talked about the Browns, so
right.
bear with us.
Could you imagine a Browns Ravens instead? One step away rematch.
I can't. I really
can't.
Oh my
gosh.
How many brackets do you think had that happening? Probably won't, but
none.
Just wanted to see you guys' reactions to, thinking about it.
Yeah.
Man, I would like to see it happen, but at the same time,
a lot of other things would have to happen.
Like to have Mahomes not be in an AFC championship, I'm not used to that.
It's the 2020 season, though.
It was like last year when the Titans beat the Patriots. And then the Texans, remember when the Texans were up like 24-0 on the Chiefs? And I was basically accepting, okay, Texans won and they're going to play the Titans. Yeah. So like Texans or Titans are going to the, like what? Like, no, that can't happen.
Yeah.
And
I
then
don't like
sure
that.
enough, it like didn't, but
That's true. But that was entering into 2020. So anything's possible.
Yeah.
Very true. Let's go to another 2020 upset. Feels like a 2020 upset. The Rams beat the Seahawks. The Seahawks started off so well, similar to the Steelers. They started off so well. Russell Wilson, mid-season MVP, at least for us. Wow, what a drop off. You saw the frustration with DK Metcalf on the sidelines. Something's not right. They just extended Pete Carroll, I think beyond 2027 or something, or 25. Like some long deal, so they're in it for the long run. Or don't check me on that about that, but they did extend him. Caleb, look up the specific.
It's like 1 year more.
you gotta be the fact checker. I think it's like beyond 2023 at least.
But I know they did fire their offensive coordinator.
Right.
Yeah, fired their offensive coordinator. I don't know if that's why DK was so upset that like the plays weren't called to him, but look. Ramsey locked you down 3 times this season. You can't beat him once. That just is crazy to me. But yeah, so the Rams will end up facing the Packers and have to go into Green Bay and try to beat the Packers' #1 seed. It's going to be tough. Jared Goff came in after John Wilford got injured, neck injury, and he came in and he just kind of held his own. I mean, he passed for like 175 yards, nothing too crazy. He just kind of was standing in there. So we'll see how he is in the cold in Green Bay. It's going to be very, very tough.
Mm-hmm.
But John, do you see another upset brewing for the Rams?
One quick thing, because I did look it up just before we get to you, John.
Yeah.
Pete Carroll is on extension for another 5 years till 2025. The GM is also contracted till 2027. And a
Wow.
last little fact is apparently the NFL's only COVID-free team was the Seahawks.
Wow.
So got all that from a little Google
I wonder if
search,
he
but
gets like a bonus for that.
He should.
you really got to give him some props there.
That's hard to do.
Right.
And I
Means
believe he's the oldest head coach
yeah, I
in the
think
NFL.
he might be the oldest and amongst the highest paid. So,
Until we get their spreadsheet and we see that they didn't do any COVID tests.
That's why it's free,
Yeah, that's why you don't have any. You don't test.
All the money just went to the contracts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just stop testing. All right,
Ooh,
give us
back to football.
Give us your.
I'm gonna give my pick.
Upset Bruin.
Yeah, I'm gonna give my pick right away. I think the Rams are gonna win this game. I know that sounds crazy, but like I said last week, I was talking about the Packers, and I just don't think they're as good as their record shows. They have.
Are you serious?
I'm serious because they haven't beat that many good teams. They lost to the Vikings, they lost to the Colts. Like when you look at their schedule, they really haven't beat many playoff teams. And okay, I think Devontae Adams is going to be able to get a touchdown. I think Ramsey's going to follow him. Devontae is maybe going to get catch 6 of 10 targets for maybe 55 yards and a touchdown, which is going to be good. But with Aaron Donald, did you see that defensive line? And then the Packers, starting left tackle, Bakhtiari is out. So now you have Leonard Floyd on one side, you have Donald up the middle. And, Rodgers can scramble, but it's unless it's snowing an inch on the field, I think the Rams are going to win this game. I don't know. I just think the Rams are going to win the game. And because Rodgers, I don't think they've played enough, great teams. I don't think they're prepared for this defense.
So before KO goes, the reason Rams won was obviously their defense, but also Cam Akers went off for 100-something yards. So let's say they stop Cam Akers, do you trust Jared Goff to throw the ball for the win? Or that's tough, man.
So if they do stop Akers, then I think they'll probably win the game if they keep him to under 100 yards. But I don't think they will. They dare teams to run against them. They let Dalvin Cook put up 48 fantasy points.
Well, that's Dalvin Cook, though.
I know, but Cam Akers is getting 20 plus, rushes a game. I think he could he's running really well right now. And the Packers, they've been, what happened last year against the 49ers when Mostert and their backfield, Mostert had 150 yards. They literally, I don't think Garoppolo threw for 200 yards. It was that easy because they just ran it every play. So it's that's what I'm worried about with this defense and then this run game. I'm really worried.
I will want to mention real quick about the Rams Seahawks, and then we can go into the Rams Packers. For the first time, I'm a big Russell Wilson fan. I love watching him play in the Seahawks as well. But to see, it's the second year in the row that the Seahawks get into a playoff game, first one, and the starting quarterback on the other team gets knocked out of the game because of a head injury, for a cheap shot. So this was the first time I was rooting against the Seahawks because John Walford got hit on the head in a way that he probably shouldn't have been hit, and it led to Goff coming in. I think we have to give a little credit to Goff. I mean, one of the storylines we were talking about last week was how when Brady won the Super Bowl with a tear in his throwing thumb, and Goff, whatever surgery what he went through was so bad that he wasn't the starter, even though he was suited up to play. And you got to give him credit. He came through. He came through and played well enough to beat this team. And that storyline was seeing it's obviously health is different scenarios totally, but you got to give Jared Goff some toughness for coming in as a backup and with an injury still carrying the team to victory. As for the Green Bay Packers and the Rams, I still have the Packers carrying it because they got I look at it as a very offensive heavy team with a good enough defense to beat out the Rams. Part of that I think is Aaron Jones, what is it? And then they have the other receivers instead of Devontae Adams. They have Lazard, they have Valdez-Scantling, as well as Rodgers' mobility was going to hopefully tire out Aaron Donald and that defense. I think they're going to edge it out instead. But, I'd look at them a bit like the Browns. I look at the Rams like I do the Browns in terms of I think they're underdogs. They're undervalued. You don't want to underestimate them because I think a lot of people underestimated them against the Seahawks. Don't do the same thing because Green Bay, you're right. I think they might not have faced as many challenges this season, coming off of Rodgers probably securing the MVP. And it's like you don't want to rest on your laurels. The Rams are coming for blood. They want to face whoever's they want to beat the Packers and move on. Even going to Lambeau, I think that's an advantage for the Packers. I think they'll still win, but a lot of good playoff games coming up, and I think I'm giving to the Packers just because that offense is going to overwhelm the defense, and the Rams. I don't think they're as diverse in terms of their offensive weapons, though they have it in them. I'm excited to see this, but I'm giving it to the Packers.
Yeah, Caleb, you reminded me. This is like the fifth time in NFL history that a number one offense is going against a number one scoring
Ooh.
defense. Number one scoring offense going up against a number one scoring defense.
And doesn't the defense win every time? Like statistically, I mean, like
I didn't
not
look that
opinion
far
here.
into it, Caleb. I just saw there were five
No,
matchups.
Caleb's like, I want to switch my pick, maybe.
I know my bracket's busted because I want the Packers to make it all the way. But I think I remember I bring that up because I think when something similar happened with the Broncos and the Panthers with Cam Newton,
Oh, yes.
and I believe they brought that statistic up as like every time, even with the might have been. I mean, I don't know if the Patriots.
Even with the Broncos Panthers and then the Broncos won, so the defense won, and then Broncos Seahawks. And remember, the Broncos had the best offense like a few years earlier, and the Seahawks had the best defense, and the Seahawks won. So
Right.
like defense seems to win, but
Well, I'm sure the rule can be. It's not a rule, but I'm
yeah.
like just remembered that. So, but it's an interesting stat because maybe I feel like this year a lot of favor has gone towards heavy offense. So you know it can be beaten. Defenses can be beaten like that, and if there's anyone who can do it, it's Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah. I had the Rams defense. I picked them up like mid-season for fantasy, and they are so good. Like it's shocking every time I watch like how good they actually are.
Mhm.
Um, so I have a lot of confidence in them to keep it close, like under 21 points. And that's if it snows, it'll definitely be under 21 points. I just wish that Goff was healthy. I hope this thumb heals really fast and he's able to perform at even like a 90%, 80% level. Because this Rams team has just been like on the down low key, just doing so well. Their rushing is like top 10. Their passing's top 10. And their defense is number one. Like they are the most balanced team, but there's just like a couple things like they don't really have that star power on offense, like a Devonte Adams.
Mhm.
They don't have that star quarterback, but they somehow, make it work. It's kind of like the Browns, but the Browns have some star players.
It's good coaching.
Great coaching. Sean McVay. And let's not, I mean, if Jonathan was here, he would say, let's not forget Sean McVay went to the
Yeah.
Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
So if you're looking at coaching, I might give the edge to Sean McVay, and
over LaFleur.
defense goes to Rams. Then you
Yeah.
go to quarterback, it goes to the Packers. Probably personnel, you're gonna go to the Packers. It's gonna be a great game. Oh, I hate to
I
say this, man. I really do.
Are you gonna say the Rams too?
yeah. What is it, Jared?
Have this really gut feeling that I need to pick the Rams. I
Oh
really
my
pick the
gosh.
Rams.
I do respect it. I have the Packers winning, but the way we've been talking of this whole podcast, it's like I feel like we all subconsciously acknowledge the Rams have a bigger shot than we might be giving them credit for.
Like,
Yeah.
I may be overreacting because the Seahawks are a division rival. They faced them twice, that they were
Mhm.
more familiar with them, and that's why they were able to lock them down. But to do that in the playoffs against Russell Wilson, that is impressive. And if they can carry that momentum into Green Bay and hope. The problem with this is I'm relying on the defense
Yeah.
You
because
don't like to do that, right?
right, I don't like doing that at all. Like if it gets to like over 21, I don't have confidence in the Rams to score over 21 points.
Right.
So Packers win by scoring over 21, and that's game.
Mm,
So there might be a couple mess ups. They are in Los Angeles. They play in a dome. They're not used to cold weather out there. So
yeah.
there may be a couple mistakes that they make, and Devontae Adams gets free, Aaron Jones gets free, and just like that, game's over because you're going to be relying on Goff to pass the ball. If they're down more than 2 touchdowns, they're not going to be running with Akers.
Right.
So it is tough. It's got to go their way. They have to play a perfect game to upset these Packers. But I'm gonna lock it in since my bracket is kaput, except for the Buccaneers.
No, you could still have. I mean, it's all. I know we're talking about Caleb's perfect bracket so far, but like
Well,
we could end up with more points because we all have different like super. As long as you get the Super Bowl, like the two
right.
teams in the Super Bowl and the champion, right? Like that's hard to do. So
That's
like
Right.
any of
true.
us could still do that.
Because we had because Jared and Jonathan, you both had Tampa, or no,
I had Tampa.
you had Tampa, Kansas City. Both of you
Yeah,
did,
Tampa,
but
Kansas City.
you had Tampa winning, and Jonathan had the Chiefs winning. So we all have
Right.
four different teams, and all four teams are still in it.
Right.
Correct.
So not impossible.
Right? Wait, you have the Bills, right, John?
Yeah, I have the Bills and the Saints in the Super Bowl, and the
And then
Saints winning.
you have
I have
the
the
Pack.
Packers.
Okay.
Yes. So it's still possible one of us
Yeah.
unless we do see a Browns Ravens rematch, and then imagine like I don't know
Oh
some
my gosh.
Rams versus maybe the Bucks, but
Well,
if the Bucks win, I would like to see that. Goff's revenge.
let's get to the Bucs last, and then let's touch on the Chiefs Browns. I think the line was minus 10.5 for the Chiefs. So a lot closer than people are thinking. John, it's crazy to say this. Crazy. But do the Browns have a shot against the Chiefs in Kansas City?
Yes, they do have a shot because of this energy like we've been talking about. That's the only reason. If you told me if they played in the middle of the year where, or first game of the season where nobody has any energy or whatever, I'd say Chiefs are going to win by a lot. But like you said, I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be within that 10-point spread that it is. But like we were talking about, it's the energy. The Browns believe that they can win. They have this momentum. They're like, we lost to the Steelers and then we beat them and they sat star players and then they put their players in and we beat them again. So it's like they know they could win these big games. And I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be in a 7 or 8 point win for the Chiefs. Yeah, I'm still picking the Chiefs. They had a bye. They got rest. Tyreek's hamstring got rest. Andy Reid off of a bye is lethal. I mean, he gets to script plays like that's not good if you're the opponent. I think Tyreek, I think Kelsey, Hardman, I think all these guys are going to have great games. It's going to be a fun game to watch. I can't wait to watch it. And I hope it's closer than I'm thinking, but I think it's going to be a 7 to 8 point win for the Chiefs.
Ooh, man. So wait, let me pose this question, and Caleb, you can answer this too. If the Browns were to win, what to you guys would be the X factor to put them over the Chiefs? Run game, pass game, Baker Mayfield, defense, Myles Garrett. Like, what out of all those do you see performing at a elite level to be able to pull off this upset?
So for me, it's going to be one thing, and it's going to be their secondary. Like I said last week, I don't think the Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl this year. And I'm pretty confident in that because of what I said. Their first 7 wins of the season, only one of them was within one score. Their last 7 wins of the season, they were all within one score. They were playing so many close games, and teams, not that teams figured them out because Mahomes is so good he could do whatever he wants. But when we saw the Falcons, like remember AJ Terrell had like dropped the interception in the end zone, like he could have won the game.
Mhm.
Like what did they do? Mahomes did not have many possessions. He didn't have many chances. They ran the ball on first and second down basically every time. And then they maybe got 50-60% on third down and got a few yards past the first down, ran it again, ran it again. And the Browns, they have the formula to win this game. They have Hunt, they have Chubb. And as long as they run the ball, I think it's going to come down, because I think they will be able to run the ball. I think it's going to come down to the Browns secondary. I think they should have a bend but don't break philosophy. Don't let Tyreek get a long touchdown. If he doesn't get a 50-yard touchdown, you could win this game. If Tyreek's sprinting, just keep running. If he stops for 10 yards, so what? Just let him. If eventually Mahomes is going to be like, I just need to throw it deep, whatever. So bend but don't break. Once you get in the red zone, then you stop them. It's going to come down to the red zone defense for the Browns. And if they could stop them in the red zone, make them kick field goals, then the Browns could really win this game. And that's my X factor. Bend but don't break. It's the red zone defense for the Browns.
Yeah, for me, I think of three things right off the top of my head. And to be clear, I do have the Chiefs beating the Browns, but again, I don't really care who wins. I know my bracket's still unbroken, but I think it's kind of a cool. I always root for the underdog. If I'm the Chiefs, you got to know your enemy, right? And I'm thinking of these three things as to why the Browns can win. First thing that comes to mind is momentum. I think of any team in the playoffs, I think the Browns come in with the most momentum, meaning they weren't expected to be there. They're coming with a chip on their shoulder after the COVID week that they had. And to the fact that they beat the Steelers, who were unbeaten longer than the Chiefs were, and to beat them decisively is big. So, if you're looking at, I'd be interested to hear what you guys think, but of all these teams that had a bye week, I feel like, the Browns have the most momentum, maybe the Bills or the Ravens second and third, maybe interchangeably, because the Bucs beating the Washington football team wasn't a big surprise. It was closer than we thought it would be. But talking about momentum is huge in football, and I think the Browns have the most of it. The second is the run game. We talked about that, and it's just that run game wears down defenses, opens up opportunities for a lot of the offense, and I think that opens up Landry. I don't think he's Landry pound for, it'll be interesting to see Landry versus Hill's performance, because Landry proved that he can show up in the playoffs, and that's big, and that Mayfield's playing well. And that leads me to my third thing is that second thing being if they have a good run game, opens up a lot of offense, control time of possession, keep the ball out of Mahomes' hands, which if any team that can do that, the two-headed monster, in Hunt and Chubb, they can do that. And that leads me to my third thing is we talked about, I think I agree with John in the secondary. My angle was more Mahomes' play. I know we shared on the Instagram how many dropped interceptions Mahomes has had. And we're coming off a week that the Browns just devastated the Steelers because of picking up those interceptions, catching those balls when they needed to. So if Mahomes is having a day similar to, where he's counting on his luck to not lose the ball, turn over the ball, then you might see the Browns have a little more luck this week. So those are three angles that I'm looking at. Is just, maybe change up. Don't go for the deep ball, like you said, John. Just go check down, use Kelsey, get some quick in and outs. Like, don't underestimate the Browns and win a game, because it's very hard to repeat success. So it's like, I think the Browns come in with a wave. I think the Chiefs have enough stability and to survive, but those are three angles I see as to why the Browns could win that. But I still have the Chiefs because it's Mahomes, because it's that offense, and because it's Andy Reid. He's proven it. I'm happy to see him succeed. He got a Super Bowl, and I think they have too much. They have a lot of experience coming out ahead in close games too. You got to give the Chiefs credit for that.
Mm-hmm. One thing to note: Patrick Mahomes has been out for, it's going to be almost 3 weeks now, because he didn't play in week 17, didn't play in this opening one, and now he's playing in this week. So he's had a long time to rest. That worries me just a little bit.
You think he's soft?
I'm not, Patrick, if you're listening, I'm not saying that.
I'm not trying to.
I'm just trying to come up with things on reasons you would lose. There's very few to pick from. No, but back to the Browns with this. I just remembered this. We had talked about the Browns preseason. The preseason, I had said they need to stop with the social media and publicly saying, like we saw Baker at a Cleveland Indians game, like shotgun and a beer, like just doing shenanigans outside of the field, and then on the field they weren't performing well. And I'm like, wow, the Browns literally just put their head down, won 10 games, 11 games, whatever. And the Steelers of all teams, this high tier NFL, team, they
Franchise,
were the
yeah.
ones that were doing all these shenanigans off the field, being disrespectful, posting on social media, saying all this stuff and not backing it up. Like, I just thought about that when I was sitting here. I'm like, who would have thought the Steelers of all teams would do that? And the Browns would be the quiet ones, putting their head down, working all season, not
Yeah,
saying anything. Like, nothing came up.
You know,
that's a good
I
point.
mean,
In the end,
the you got to think the Steelers owner wishes he had a one of those time
Stefanski.
machines to go
Uh,
back to when Juju downloaded that TikTok app, and he
please
could just be like, he
don't
could just
download
send an error and be like, Juju, like, why can't I download this TikTok thing?
it.
And he
he's
just
probably like, Trump, why didn't you just ban it when you had the chance?
Please,
yeah,
please, because the Browns players are playing Corvette in the locker room after they beat the Steelers, and they were even like tweeting it and stuff.
Dude,
Like you just
yeah,
gave.
think about this right now. All the teams that beat the Steelers all played that song after. Like the like fire that it lit on the opposing team
Oh,
just
it
from a
motivates you.
TikTok. It motivated them so much.
yeah,
The Bengals of all teams beat them, and they were celebrating like they had just won the playoff game. Like,
yeah.
it's crazy.
Well,
If Juju didn't do that, who knows what would happen?
you
Back to the
wonder.
game. The Browns do have a chance. Everyone's got a chance. I think Browns have more of a higher percentage than most. I think you're looking at close to 40-30% chance to win here. But you gotta play the Chiefs as if every turnover you need to score the most points.
Hmm.
If they
Hmm.
turn the ball over, if they fumble the ball, throw an interception, you need 6 points. You need 7 points. You cannot accept field goals and expect to beat the Chiefs. It will come back to bite you. They're gonna turn it on, just like every other game. If they start off slow, it's gonna click sooner or later. So you better
Hmm.
have a big enough lead to be able to withstand that
Yeah.
barrage that they're gonna be able to come at you with Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Kelsey. So with that being said, again with the Rams, Browns need to play a perfect game. It's that simple. Like, I mean, it's simple to say, but they need to play a perfect game. And out of all the teams, the Browns, I would say, have the highest chance of causing an upset. But I do have the
Really?
Chiefs. I do have
Hmm.
the Chiefs.
But you have the Rams, so the Browns have a bigger chance. But then,
The reason I say that is because
It
I don't
changed.
think the Packers are worthy of a number one seed.
ooh,
Oh,
I
Like
agree. I agree
The
with
Chiefs
that.
have proved that they are number one. They are the number one of the NFL.
Yeah.
The Packers, I don't see that. I had the Bucs beating the Packers if they had met. I don't see them as that true number one seed.
yeah. I don't know if it's my heart because I want the Packers to win, right? But they lost to the Vikings and then lost to the Bucks in pretty big ways, and those were good. That was good competition. I still think it's the Packers, but I just wanted to mention that. It's like some weird consistency issues there.
Let's go
To
on
make
to our last game. It's going to be Bucs versus the New Orleans Saints. The Saints came off a win against the Bears on Nickelodeon. If anybody watched, I watched. It was pretty fun. The announcers were a little cringe, but it was
Hey,
still fun to watch.
hey,
And the Bucs beat the Washington football team. I got it right for the last time. Washington football team.
let's go.
Let's go. So Tom Brady versus Drew Brees. Who knows if we will ever see this again? If they both retire this
Oh,
year, well, this is the last time. Like, we're either gonna see Drew Brees
stop.
for the last time, or we're gonna see Tom Brady for the
That
last.
made me sad, dude. I didn't think about it that way.
Sorry about that. Well,
But you're
is it
right.
happy that you're not gonna see Tom Brady ever again?
Remains to be seen.
Maybe. So obviously the Bucs are underdogs. I'm gonna just go right out and say this. I got the Bucs in this. I did pick them for the Super Bowl, but the Saints, the Saints kept it a little close with the Bears, a little too close. I expected a blowout, so that worries me just a tad. And the Bucs played pretty well against Washington. There's nothing really much to say there. They were expected to win, so I'm expecting Tom Brady, and I'm expecting Ronald Jones to have a big game. We saw Miles Sanders, of all people, break that 100-yard rushing streak against the Saints. They had it for like however many games. I think Ronald Jones, Leonard Fournette, I think one of those guys are going to go for 100 yards, maybe total for almost 200. So keep an eye on the run game for the Buccaneers. And for the Saints, ooh, man, I'm worried. I know John's got the Drew. Oh, we forgot to mention John has a Drew Brees jersey on for all our listeners on Spotify and Apple. He's got a Drew Brees jersey on. He has the Saints winning the Super Bowl. I'm worried, dude. I'm going to talk to John since he's going to have the Saints winning. But your second target, your second target for wide receiver is going to be Jared Cook, your tight end. Are you at all worried about
What? What about Emmanuel Sanders?
He's one.
No, Michael Thomas is one.
Slant God.
Slant boy.
Slant boy.
I thought if anybody doesn't know, all the TikTokers just call him Slant Boy. Whenever you hear Slant Boy, everybody knows it's Michael Thomas. But
yes.
He could do other things other than slants. He is good, but I'm not worried
all season.
What?
He hasn't had a good game all season.
What? Last game he didn't play well?
No.
Well, that was his first touchdown of the season because he was out most of the year. But I'm not really worried about that, about Michael Thomas, Emmanuel Sanders, and Jared Cook. And I think it's good that they're not relying on Thomas as much as they did last year when he set like the receptions record. I like the emphasis on the run game more. Kamara, Latavius Murray, I like that better. And I think it's going to be a good game. So going back to what you were saying about Ronald Jones, I'm sorry to say, but the first game of the season, Ronald Jones had 17 carries against these Saints and put up 60.
We don't have to talk about that first game.
Okay, so we won't talk about the first game, but he had 66 yards rushing, which is 3.9 average, which is okay. And then the second game, remember, that was the historic game where the Buccaneers set an NFL record for least amount of rush attempts in a game with 4 rush attempts. They gave it to Fournette once, and he got 0 yards on that carry. They gave it to Ronald Jones 3 times, and he had 9 yards, and that was it. So I think
that was before the Miles Sanders breakdown.
Yeah, but I think these Buccaneers are looking at this tape. They lost 38-23 at home, and then they went to the Saints and lost 38-3, and they're like, oh shit, we have to go to the Saints again. They know they have no chance to win this game. The Saints are going to win this game. They're not going to be able to run the ball that well. You know, the Saints run defense. I think it's going to be close because the Saints don't go for it on 4th down. They don't do anything crazy. They're not going to light it up. And I don't think it's going to be 38-3, but I think it's going to be maybe 27 to like 20 or something like that, a 7-point win. When you beat a team 2 times in a season, it's hard like for the other team to come back and win that third game. They already know they got blown out twice by this team. They're like, yeah, they might want it more, but it's like, you just like, how do we beat this team? We just don't know how. And yeah, Brady's been playing well, but I just think these Saints are good. Like every time Marshawn Lattimore plays Mike Evans, he gets the better of him. Some reason he just gets in his head and they have a fight every game. So he's going to have to go to somebody else and they're not going to be able to run it. So I'm definitely picking the Saints in this game. And anybody listening, I'm not a Saints fan. I'm a Giants fan. But at one point I bought the Breeze jersey because I think the first year I played fantasy football, he was my quarterback and I won the league. And, just bought the Breeze jersey.
This is you giving back to him.
Yeah, so I'm rooting for Breeze. And on the note of Brady versus Breeze, I think this is the last time we'll see it. I think Brady will come back next year, but I don't think Breeze will.
Wow. Definitely crazy to hear that. They've been stalwarts of the game, legends as well, both of them. I agree with you, John. I have the Saints winning this. One thing I kind of disagree with you, Jared, on is that I think the Washington football team played and the Buccaneers game was a lot closer than the Bears and Saints one. Like I was looking at the win. ESPN has a win probability throughout the game of the chances of the team winning, and the Saints hit upper 90%. They started off at 80% chance of winning, and they started to hit the upper 90s by the end of the third. Going into the fourth for the Buccaneers, though, they had their biggest dip when they started at 80 and they went down to about 65%. Basically saying for most of the game, it was close between the Washington football team and the Bucs, which to me is warning signs if I'm the Buccaneers team going against a team like the Saints that have already beaten you. You know, the Saints won decisively against the Bears. It was, that one was more decisive than the Bucs, and they've already beaten the Bucs. So it's like, I think the Saints have it in them. I mean, I was thinking about this too. I don't know what you guys would think, but the best running back in the play who's still playing in the postseason right now would have to be Kamara, or I mean, maybe Chubb and Hunt. That split is like a better backfield, but I think Kamara's the best of everyone. Maybe Aaron Jones, but you tie that into John, like you were saying, they're not relying on Thomas as much anymore. And Breeze compared to you look at like Roethlisberger or Phillip Rivers is like Breeze might be getting up there and showing signs of age, but he's playing consistently enough. Like you saw him go for that. They didn't get it, but like he still has it in him to fight for that yard. And when they were on the 1 yard line, he just tried to get it over and didn't get it. But it's like when I saw him do it, like dang, like he looks young, like he's still got that fire in him to win games. And it's like not to say Phillip Rivers or Roethlisberger didn't have it, but it's just clear to see. And I think that matchup between Brady and Breeze is going to be interesting because obviously Brady has it in him. But I just think as a whole team, I look at the Saints and think they have the pieces to beat the Bucs. I mean, if it was that close with the Washington football team, which doesn't have as big as a proven record or as diverse of a team, then I think I lean towards the Saints winning this one.
Look, I'm not gonna impress you guys with stats. Obviously, the Bucs just don't have it. But if we're gonna talk about past games, we have to talk about the 3 Saints playoff games that they lost: 2 to the Vikings, 1 to the Rams. Guys, this team has nearly worse luck than the Buffalo Bills when they went 4 times to the Super Bowl and lost 4. Like that's it's hard to even explain. It's just I've come to my senses that the Saints just aren't good in the playoffs, and Drew Brees had that 1 Super Bowl, and that's it. That's all you're gonna get. It's hard to put into stats and words like just luck
from the heart,
but it definitely plays a role, and you're going up against the best quarterback in playoff history.
Yeah, it definitely plays a role, and that is one thing
in the back of your mind. Yeah, like in the back of your mind, you got to be thinking about that.
I know. That's what I was gonna say. Like in the back of your mind, it's like the Saints, all those 3 games were close, and it's like the Bears game wasn't close, but this Bucs game could be within 1 score for sure. And if they go to the NFC Championship game, that's going to be within 1 score. So it's like, are these players thinking like, oh wow, it's the 4th quarter and it's like a really close game, like we're gonna find a way to lose? Like you don't want that mentality, which stinks, and that is worrisome.
That's a fair argument because it's like if the pattern holds, Jared, you're gonna probably be right, and it's like it's just like it's a mental thing.
Yeah, it's like if you think something's going to happen and you believe it, and then you're going to act that certain way and it's going to happen,
Self-fulfilling prophecy.
It's kind of like when the Cowboys were a 1 seed and like, they're like, oh, they're a 1 seed. But like historically, in the 2000s, they haven't been good in the playoffs and then they lose that game. It's just like that type of feel.
Good times.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man.
Well, it's going to be interesting because Bucs and Saints, Jared, you and I have the winner of that winning the Super Bowl. So one of us is going to be dead wrong right here.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know, man. I don't know. Like, dude, after this first round, all of my preconceived thoughts on each team are out the window. They're all wrong, except for the Colts. The Colts, I will give credit to. You should have won the game. Look, Colts, I'm a Chargers fan. Philip Rivers does this. Like, I'm used to it. So, again, bad luck. That's all I can say. Just bad
It's just
luck.
it's just meant to be with Philip Rivers. He's just meant to lose every fourth quarter game.
No, that's
Every fourth quarter close game. It's unreal. Like at that point.
I would have liked to have seen him win. Not that he's not over yet either. So
No.
I mean, I think there's talk he's going to be the Colts quarterback next season. I think is the plan. So
Possibly.
I don't.
that's the talk, which is talk. But you know, he
I
played
want
well.
I want to say one thing before we wrap this up, that the Bills secondary is very underrated. You guys have to watch for this Saturday, this Saturday against Lamar. I think they're going to pick Lamar off at least once, maybe twice. This secondary is much better than you think, with Tre'Davious White on Marquise Brown, and you have I think the two best safeties, the two best pair of safeties in the league right now. You have Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer. Hyde makes great plays, veteran guy, and Poyer, you saw knock the ball out of Pascal's hand at the end of the game, which should have been a fumble, but he's always around the ball. And in comparison, maybe the Rams have a better secondary, but right behind them, with these remaining 6 teams or whatever, it's going to be, I think it's, or 8 teams. I think the Bills have the second best secondary. And I wouldn't be surprised, don't be surprised, everybody, if they get 2 interceptions. Tre'Davious White locks down Marquise Brown, and Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer are the story of this game and this Bills team moving forward.
Yeah, if you've made it this far into the podcast, I would really like to know, go into the comments and let us know if you thought that fumble, that Poyer strip should have been a fumble, or did the refs get it right?
Oh, it was such a fumble.
Because, I mean, looking back on it, his knee was up. He was trying to go for the end zone.
Yeah.
And he stripped it. I mean, I don't see how you don't call that a fumble. But yeah, I would just like to know. You can just put fumble or not fumble and whatever. And we'll see how
we
many.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, if you're still here, you're the real ones.
If anybody's out there,
you're the real.
Yeah, that concludes our second playoff episode of the Dorm Debate podcast. Thank you guys for joining us again. And we will be back next week on Thursday, as always. If your team is in the playoffs, hopefully they win. And enjoy this weekend, guys. We only have a couple more weekends of NFL football, which is so sad. But enjoy Saturday, enjoy Sunday. And we will see you guys again next week on Thursday. Thank you, guys. See you guys later.